tallest building in the United States? You'd think that'd be a straightforward question to answer and that it would be uncontroversial, but there's actually a debate about it, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So I'm going to present you with all of the facts, and I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which building you think should be considered the tallest in the country. Hi there, and welcome to Architecture with Wyatt, the YouTube channel all about architecture, and I'm your host, Wyatt. So I'm going to need you to head on over to New York City, as that's where the two tallest buildings in the country reside and where our conversation begins. Welcome to New York, and let me introduce you the two tallest buildings in the United States. This is the One World Trade Center, standing a symbolic 1,776 feet, or 541 meters in height. This tower was completed in 2014. And this is Central Park Tower, standing 1,550 feet, or 472 meters in height. This tower was completed in 2020. Now, I literally just told you that one of these buildings is taller than the other, so what are we talking about? What is the point of this video? While these two buildings are located many blocks apart on Manhattan, you'll notice something interesting if they were to stand side by side. You'll immediately notice that about 23% of the One World Trade Center's overall height comes from that spire on top. In fact, despite Central Park Tower being officially classified as the shorter building, if you were to stand on the roof of Central Park Tower, you would be 182 feet or 55 meters higher than the roof of the One World Trade Center. So there are some people that believe that the One World Trade Center is cheating by being the #1 tallest building in the country because so much of its height comes from that spire. Now, there's obviously nothing wrong with a spire. They are architectural elements of buildings, and they can certainly elevate a building's design. However, the debate surrounding whether they should be included in the building's overall height rages on. And that debate boils down to the fact that there are three different measurements when considering the height of a building. I know, it's needlessly complicated, but don't worry, I'll explain them all to you right now. So I want you to think of a random 3-story building in your hometown. Let's say it looks something like this. The first measurement when considering the height of a building is the height to tip measurement. And that measurement is from the ground floor of the building up to the highest point of that structure, regardless of function or material. So let's say, for example, in that building in your hometown, that someone installed a flagpole on top. Well, the height to tip measurement would be from the ground floor up to the very top of that flagpole. Now, obviously a flagpole isn't a part of a building. It's just attached to it. But in this measurement, it would be included. And this doesn't just apply to flagpoles, it could be anything. It could be a billboard on top of the building, it could be an antenna. A lot of buildings, including some skyscrapers, have these big old antennas on top. And once again, they obviously aren't a part of the building's design, they're just attached to it, but in the height to tip measurement, they would count. The second measurement is height to architectural top, or simply put, the architectural height of the building. And that is from the ground floor up to the highest permanent architectural element of that building. So in the case of our example building, it would be the roof. So the measurement would look something like this. It's worth noting that this measurement, the architectural height of a building, is by far the most widely accepted in the international councils and committees on architecture, as well as the general public when it comes to officially designating a building's height and ranking them in height. It's also the measurement that I use in my videos. And the final measurement when considering the height of a building is the height to highest occupied floor. And that is from the ground floor of the building up to the finished floor of the top level of that structure. So basically, how high in the building can people actually go? In our example building, it would be something like this, or the top measurement would be wherever that finished floor is. Now let's bring this conversation back to New York City and our discussion of what is the tallest building in the United States. See, depending on which of those measurements you use, you might have a different tallest building in the country. If you go by the measurement of height to tip, the tallest building in the country is the One World Trade Center. Believe it or not, there's actually a little antenna on top of that spire that even increases its height even more when using that measurement. And if you go by the architectural height of the building, then it is also the One World Trade Center. See, spires are permanent architectural elements of a building, and so they are included in the architectural height. The One World Trade Center spire was included in the original design of the building, it was included in the original construction, it's a permanent element of the building. However, things get interesting when you look at the highest occupied floor measure. Because if you go by that, then Central Park Tower is the tallest building in the country. What's also interesting is that One World Trade Center, it doesn't just get knocked down to second place, it gets knocked down all the way to fourth. That's right, the One World Trade Center only has the fourth highest occupied floor measurement of all the buildings in the country. With the Willis, formerly known as the Sears Tower in Chicago, and 432 Park Avenue, another skyscraper in New York City, also having a higher highest occupied floor than the One World Trade Center. And this conversation isn't just happening in New York City or in the United States. Look at the current second and third tallest buildings in the world. This is the Merdeka 188, located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and it is officially the second tallest building in the world. And this is the Shanghai Tower, located in Shanghai, China, officially the third tallest building in the world. But side by side, you'll notice the exact same thing. A spire is used to help elevate that building's height. And while it's pretty obvious, I'm just going to say this, yes, the Shanghai Tower has a higher, highest occupied floor than the Merdeka 118 does. Now, I want to mention that everything in architecture is intentional. The design is intentional. It's not just about trying to surpass other buildings in height, it's about the design of the building itself. For example, the roof height of the One World Trade Center matches the roof height of the original North Tower in the original World Trade Center complex. And then its spire brings up its total height in feet to that symbolic 1,776 feet, matching the year 1776, an important year in the country's history. So once again, it's not just about eclipsing other buildings in height, it's all intentional for the building itself, if that makes sense. Okay, before we completely move on from this talk about spires, I know what some of you are thinking. If a spire counts as an actual architectural height, then why wouldn't someone build a short, one-story building, put a massive spire on top and say, hey, I just built the tallest building in the world? Well, thankfully that wouldn't count, because that would be pretty ridiculous in my opinion. See, in order for a structure to qualify as a building, to be a skyscraper, the majority of that structure has to be continuously occupiable floors. So it couldn't just be this big spire or something. That wouldn't be considered a building, because the majority isn't occupiable floors. So let me ask you one final time. What is the tallest building in the United States? And what measurement are you using to determine that? Are you going by height to tip, which would be the One World Trade Center? Are you going by the architectural height, which would also be the One World Trade Center? Or are you going by highest occupiable floor? Let me know, I'm curious to know your thoughts. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Architecture with Wyatt. Make sure to come back in a few days to see our next video. Thanks again.